Hello, everyone. Welcome to Law Firms on the Map, the go-to digital marketing show for attorneys serious about their business growth. I'm your host, Kristaps Brencans, CEO of On the Map Marketing. Our agency has helped thousands of attorneys crush their SEO and digital marketing goals over the last decade. Today, I'm meeting yet with another legal SEO expert, Brian Hansen. Brian has a very unique story. He's an entrepreneur that went from raising over $1 million and later exiting his HR SaaS company, and now he's deeply in legal marketing consulting law firms across the nation. What a pleasure to have you here, Brian. It's quite a pleasure having you here and hearing your story.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Thank you so much. Looking forward to a good chat today.
Yes. So before we kick things off with more specific legal marketing ideas and strategies and experiences, maybe you could tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you went from running a successful SaaS company to now operating pretty solid size legal marketing consultancy.
Yeah, I guess I've decided to make life difficult, payroll, tax filing, HR, and then getting into running an agency, right? So, but yeah, kind of a hard pivot, but the move happened when I kind of re-entered corporate America, like stereotypical corporate America, like really big agency, right? And in hindsight, I'm really glad I did because it was like the ultimate learning platform, right? Like kind of a nice prerequisite for kind of starting an agency. So, I think a lot of people kind of resonate with the problems I saw, and not just the agency I was working with, but like the competitors I interfaced with. And I'm sure your team has similar stories, right? But it was things like, 50 grand in Google Ads was impounded, but oh wait, it went into the agency account. How much was spent on Google, right? Or or kind of the voodoo SEO reporting where it seems like the strategy is to use a bunch of vernacular, right? That the attorney doesn't understand and that somehow makes you smart or something, right? And then some of the smaller competitors like you and I know that the barrier to entry for starting, some sort of agency, when we use that term broadly, is pretty much zero, right? And what that does is everybody and their mother is an expert, right? So you have these like self-proclaimed experts, right? I've been doing this for 7 years with my company, and I don't like when people call me an expert, right? Like I like to be looked at.
I apologize for the intro.
you know what I mean? But it's more the attitude and the aptitude, right? It's like I'm a committed student, right? I like that. I've learned a lot, right? But things are changing, and I think it's better to have that kind of humility and like, hey, let's evolve with the times. Let's all do it together, right? But
yeah, Brian. So chronologically, what were the steps? So you began your career in sales, is that right? You were in like HR, SaaS tool sales, and then you saw an opportunity and you started your own SaaS company.
I think that's well represented. I've kind of done that path twice, like go see what I could learn, then go do it on my own, right? So I worked for ADP, which is the big payroll company, right? And then I was like, opportunity, clients are underserved. This is a long time ago, by the way. So like before things were like super mature with, technology online and stuff. So then it was stop, raise some capital, launch a payroll, tax filing, like HR outsourcing company, kind of wet my beak with some VCs or private equity guys, did that for a while and then exited, went back into sales. This was like reach local IQ days. And then same thing, kind of, learned a lot and then got the itch again. Really, the itch comes when you see all these like problems, and it's just the market's like begging for a solution. But you want to be part of the solution. Obviously, there's a lot of companies that in this space that do great work. And then I decided I was going to do that with the ethos being like so simple, right? Just like doing the stuff that that we didn't see happening. So the honesty, the integrity, right? The transparency, and like a big focus on like hiring the right people And I know everyone says that, but like, I mean that specifically. So yeah, I mean that from like the knowledge and expertise side. So
So what was your initial entry point in the legal space? So obviously you worked for a bigger agency, you saw the opportunity that market's being underserved, you want to build your own product. What were kind of first steps? What were the campaigns you started rolling out, or how did you get started with your own agency?
well, you get started by just making mistakes and reflecting back on them, right? So, so I did have some law firms that I worked with the bigger agencies. So that was kind of like always in the back of my mind, like, should that be the niche? But when we first start, like when you first start, like at least I didn't have that astute mindset that I was like, oh, I really need a niche and focus, right? It was kind of like I just like left my career, right? I don't have like formal financial backing, so like let's get some people to like pay the bills, right? So that's kind of random little project, and then as time goes on, you start realizing, okay, kind of let's niche down and focus. What do we know the best about, right? And for us, it was the law firms, and those campaigns were kind of doing the best. And we kind of started to not go after other verticals, right? And then, as time goes on, you start to kind of niche even further down, right? Because even law firms, if you think about it, is broad, right? So now, right now, we only serve a couple niches, and we have what we call, our ideal client profile, and um, this is just more so we go into the project knowing or having a degree of confidence that it could be successful, right?
So tell me a little bit about your approach. Sounds like you are doing not just one particular method. It's not just SEO. It sounds like you're approaching legal marketing from all aspects, and you provide full service campaigns. So give us a little bit idea of your philosophy. How do you approach it, and maybe describe it for a couple practice area types?
Okay, good question. So I would say our approach is it's kind of this like heavy lifting exercise that we do at the beginning of a relationship, and this is still in the sales environment. So this is when we're like, we call it a market assessment or, discovery, something like that. And we're like tearing apart what they're currently doing. And then we're looking at their top competitors, which is always like, I say that with a smirk because it's like what we see as their competitors are sometimes different than what they see, right? Like if we're thinking SEO, like a lot of local, I'm talking about people taking up like, real estate in the map pack, right? Whereas they might be talking billboards and stuff like that. So we do this in-depth analysis that like breaks down what their competitors are doing, and we look at all the different disciplines of SEO, local, technical, on page. What are they up to for content, link building profiles, like these things that have contributed to their success. And then, so this is just on the SEO side, and then we can come back and say, based on what we've learned, in order for you to be successful, this is what we think it's going to take. Right. So it's interesting because like sometimes it's like, are you crazy? Like we're not budgeted for that. And that's okay. Right. Because we're like, that's fine. Like we served as a resource. Right. We hope you use this valuable. Like maybe you just don't do SEO right now. Right. Because you can't afford it, or have these conversations with your agency, your current one, or plan for it. Right. Or if it fits the budget, then we start talking about getting into like a scope of work. I think Google Ads planning is it's always kind of interesting because everyone has had kind of a different experience, and there's so many like levels of expertise that where campaigns were managed, they're like in-house or outsourced or somebody's brother, or it's just like all over, So
I'm going to take a little sidestep here since you brought up Google AdWords. Have you also noticed like little longer ramp up periods for Google ad campaigns? When you kick them off, like you sort of need that 60-day window for the campaigns to gather enough data for Google to start serving you in better positions with higher CTRs, with higher traffic.
Yeah, we see that. I mean, you first have like the learning period, right? So sometimes it's not even spending. And then I always tell clients like, hey, when your campaign goes live, guess what? You're like the new kid on the block. So guess who's clicking on your ad? Everybody that you don't want to. Other marketers that are watching the market, right? Other attorneys that are like, hey, who's this? Right? So that's part of that 30, 60 days, right? So then you get out of learning, you get some data, the agency starts reacting to it. Hopefully some of those like not malicious, but some of those kind of errant clicks go away, right? And then, yeah, I mean, you can certainly get results quicker than SEO because it's more elastic, but yeah, I mean, these things take time and the commitment to the different testing that you can do, right?
Of course. Do you prefer AdWords? Within AdWords, do you prefer text ads or LSA ads? What's your go-to?
Yeah, that's another good question because in my opinion, like the LSA product is like a very imperfect product. Like we all know these like elements like, vicinity, reviews, profile, budget, right? That are supposed to go into this algorithm. But then I see smaller budgets showing sometimes, and I see massive budgets that are struggling to get up there, right? So going into it, I mean, I'm a marketer, so of course I'm hoping I have everything, right? I'm going to run the SEO, the LSAs, the Google ads, and we're going to get the test. But it's hard to say because you just don't really know what's going to happen. Each market is just a little different. Yeah.
What would you pick? Perfectly optimized text ad with landing page or perfectly performing LSA campaign?
Well, I think, when an attorney hears like these like financial models, right? When they talk about like cost per click and they're like, wait, that's just the click, right? And then we have to get them to the lander and then we're going to manage CTR. And then they hear conversion and they're like, wait, when you say conversion, you're talking like form fill or phone call, right? But I'm talking cases, right? So there's kind of this like process. And then they hear like LSA, like, wait, I only pay if I get the lead. So that's kind of attractive, right? Especially on paper. So I guess if I had to pick, and the LSAs are serving, right, then I do like that for attorneys because I think that model resonates with them. But it just kind of depends on the competitive landscape and what's going on,
Now you triggered a new question for me that I hadn't prepared for, but I'm going to start asking this. What is your favorite legal CRM?
Yeah, I don't think I really have a preference on CRM. We don't do much consulting there. Like sometimes it's like, hey, here's the Panther practice code. We want to use these forms or, people want to map stuff in there, right? But beyond that, that's kind of with them. I see CasePeer in Clio a lot. I guess I kind of like CasePeer because for PI, it's very focused. Where they've niched down to legal and then to this sub niche. So out of the box, everything, all the fields and stuff are kind of custom for PI. So yeah.
I like kind of gathering the data on the CRMs because everyone's using something else, and it's just interesting to see what the market is doing. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. We talked about the paid stuff, but my heart, my passion lies in the SEO world. I mean, I love digital marketing overall, but the SEO is just always a fun game to get into. Everyone says content and links, but let's get a little bit deeper. What's been your success formula? What do you see working? What are your favorite little tricks? Kind of give me your philosophy on law firm SEO.
I'll tell you what, I'll make an effort not to give the stereotypical like build out your content library, content clusters, and do some link building, right? It's like, yeah. Here's some things we've seen work, and obviously this requires like a certain size law firm, right? But I'm gonna say like subsequent, right? So after getting your rankings good in mass, right? Think about expansion by getting another office, right? Why not? Because we all know the trend, and we'll see what happens with SGE. I'm sure you're going to ask me about that later. But that the clicks, right? It's in legal have been kind of going more towards maps, right? So it's like getting like really competitive in certain markets. There's only a couple spots, right? So if you've done that successfully, you're making money from the internet. Why not put your agency to work and say, hey, let's look for some stock their markets, right? We'll go get an office there and let's try to rank there, right? And then implement all we can talk about those tactics, but all the like tactics and advanced tactics that are more like on the local SEO side, you know?
And I love the fact that you went straight to local, like deeper local, map
Yeah, deeper,
listings, because
right?
that's really where the money is. What's your formula for map listing optimization? What kind of strategies you guys have seen working?
Yeah. So, and this one like surprises me all the time. I feel like every time we get a new client and we go look at their Google business profile, I just can't understand why the thing is not fully optimized. Like it's really, it shouldn't be considered advanced SEO, right? I mean, like you're like filling out fields. Like it's not hard. So first of all is like that audit and thoroughness. That's it, right? You have like your business description, write a nice one. You don't even have to be that thoughtful of SEO. Like you'll just do it naturally, right? And then go back and edit it and make sure there's some keywords, but make sure it's on brand and professional, right? Easy. And then everything, right? So you have like your services, which should parallel your practice areas. And a lot of people are just letting Google index that, right? They bring it in, users contribute to it, and it gets sloppy. Custom services, so you can write descriptions. Same thing on the product side, custom products, descriptions, and then post some custom graphics, right? Because you can do that on product. Some areas I see that people kind of neglect are a concentrated effort on new reviews, right? And then responding to those reviews. And just roll out some, it's more than software though. It's easy to say like go license Podium, Gather Up, or Bird Eye, but it's actually more of like culturally getting everyone on board in the law firm to like commit to the process, right? Because
Oh, I love that. I love that. Can you talk a little more about this?
yeah,
What is the formula for that? Because it's hard to go into business and say, hey, I want all of you start thinking about this. It's necessary for your SEO. Just go get reviews.
I mean, new SEO company, do what I say, right? Like, it's easier said than done, but I think it's really easy to talk about like the software process and where leads go and all that, but without this like culture that everyone's going to adapt it, it's not going to work. So it's going to start at the top, right? It's going to start with leadership there. So you're going to have to not just ask the attorneys to participate, but get them to understand why this is important, right? And it obviously goes beyond, like it's easy to get like nerd out on the SEO, but this is also like their brand perception, right? How people view them. So even if they're getting referrals, right? People might do a branded search, see the knowledge panel, see the Google business profile, and how do they appear, right? So it's helping with the conversion also. So I think if you can get leadership, bought in, they will help with the rollout, whether it's the attorney or marketing person or an office manager or something. But, and it might not be super high impact, but like the FAQ is another section that is often not really attended to, and again, it just kind of helps take up a little bit more space over there. At the bottom, there's like the suggested competitors. Why not put that down? No one knows for sure, but perhaps Google is indexing that and including it. So certainly not going to be harmful.
I love it. I want to kind of feed back a little bit what you just said. So 2 fundamental things to execute. Number 1, just fill in all the fundamentals, like really invest the time, to properly optimize, use all of the possible service areas, text, etc. And then number 2, and this one really hit home for me. And I think I want to talk to my team about adopting it too. Like adopt the culture of generating reviews and start at the top. So if the client is the partner in a law firm, talk to them about adopting a culture of generating reviews. Obviously, there's more steps that go into it, but the whole idea is, hey, this is a long-term play, whether you work with us or not. You need to figure out how your law firm will consistently attract reviews. And it's going to start with you, and then that's going to go down to every employee in your company.
So one thing we're doing, and this is more recent, is we're like post, like, bring on a new client, get access and everything. And then we're starting to set up a call that is only about reviews. And we talked about this internally. And the reason we're doing that is like, if it's part of an SEO review meeting, it's just like another checklist. But if it's just like, we're only going to talk about reviews on this call, then it carries a little bit more weight, right? So it speaks to the importance, like we're literally using an attorney's time for this, right? So.
And does it end up being almost like a coaching call where you guys show them the tools you use and how those can be used on their behalf?
Yeah, so we settled on a tool. It's called GatherUp, but it doesn't really matter, right? So it gets to that point, right? If it's going to be them or their designee, but the purpose of that first call is really just to like talk about the importance of reviews and the kind of goal of the call is to get the buy-in, right? And then we can talk about the rollout. But without the buy-in, it won't happen, right?
And the firms that have adopted this successfully, have you seen significant increase in their generated reviews?
Significant. I don't know if I would say like significant quantity, but the frequency and recency is what I'm noticing, right? Which I like, right? So even if it's like, hey, you got a couple reviews last week that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, that to me is a win. And we know that Google is looking at that frequency and recency. So it's not host an event and, have 100 people leave a review. No, it's like, get your recent clients to leave like these, authentic and recent reviews. So, yeah.
So we talked about two aspects, right? And both apply directly within the Google Business Profile. What about some external elements that you've seen influence Google Business Profile rankings positively?
Yeah. So another thing we've seen, and this is a good one because it's kind of like some manual lifting that you can kind of count on that your client's competitors probably won't do, is we curate a list of local sponsorship opportunities, right? And this could be anything. This could be a charity, a upcoming event, a Little League baseball team, right? Stuff like that. And then we'll present to the client, say, this is what we found. This is the tiers they have for sponsorship. They're going to provide a backlink. Why do we like that link? Because, there's always like categories of links, right? Like citations, editorial links, right? Of course. So this is like what we call a local link. We know it carries some weight and it's very unlikely that the competition will have it. So, so it's unique. And we think that is contributing to the success when we see our clients ranking in maps.
So your team builds the local links with the goal of, obviously it's local exposure for the client, but ultimately to improve the map rankings.
That's the goal, right? And then, but, from the law firm's perspective, like they're actually doing more than that, right? They're like doing a little bit of good in their community, right? Because they're contributing, they're being a contributing member to the community. They're sponsoring something. So they also have that feel good aspect and they also get to benefit from it. So there's nothing wrong with that.
What has been, this is going to be a general question and probably answer depends, but what's the rough number to aim for as far as quantity of these local sponsorship opportunities?
It's going to be low, right? So it's just like, for example, for context, like if you're doing like the general citations, we're talking in the hundreds, right? Because you're using all this software and you could also be like looking at your competitors' profiles, right? So what we're doing there, this is a little bit of a tangent, but we'll take the competitor profiles, okay? And then we'll sort them by citations, and then we'll cross-reference it against our client's citations, right? So then we have this like link intersect of these
Mm-hmm.
citations they have that our client doesn't have, and we'll build those by hand. So those are like in the hundreds, right? These local sponsorship links, I'm talking like 5, 10 links, right? Low numbers. There's only gonna be, and then quarterly or something like that, you can go back to the market and see if you see new opportunities, right? But
Mm-hmm.
a little bit can go a long way here.
And is that enough to see ranking improvements within maps?
On its own, no, right? But I think, yeah, that in conjunction with Google Business, profile optimization, citations, link building, the optimizations on the site, things like that, it's gonna play a role for sure.
Shifting gears a little bit, what is your favorite link building strategy?
After doing this for a while, it seems like it at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to like what's accessible to you, right? It's like anything in life. It's like your relationships. You can do these cold email outreach campaigns to build links, right? And they'll take a long time, and they may work, but when you've worked with the publisher in the past, or you have relationships with good link brokers, things like that, it's gonna be faster.
I'm guessing you're relating a little more to like guest posts and those type of opportunities.
Yeah, guest postings, or convincing a publisher to update a current piece of content, right, with your link, because it's insertions, it's relevant, trying to get it to the top, dictating the anchor text, things like that.
What are some metrics or elements you're looking for in these sites, whether it's for insertion or guest posts?
One thing we look at for sure is traffic, right? Because link building, you have to be careful, because a lot of sites on the internet have really been built for the purpose of people to build links to them, right? And those ones stand out when they have like these higher domain ratings or higher domain authority, and then you go look and they don't have much traffic, right? So you kind of want like the combination of whatever metric you pick, honestly, is fine on the like software side of things. And what I mean by that is, Majestic has theirs, Ahrefs has theirs, Moz has theirs. So for this, I'll just say domain authority. Let's go with Moz. And then traffic. And then the last one I'd go with is relevancy. If I had to pick one of those three, I'd honestly probably say relevancy, right? Because it's much easier to have like a natural like anchor text in there if the content is relevant. And then one little trick we do, if we can, is we'll see if we can get the text around the link to be like hyper relevant. So we'll try to like write a sentence or two. Yeah, that's, obviously you need publisher cooperation and all these things, but that's a little advanced tip that helps out. Yeah.
So, what has been one of kind of like surprising channels that has generated leads that you didn't expect happening?
Well, I would say Facebook for class action lawsuits. For people that are debating these different channels, Google is like the lower of funnel, like this search intent, right? Like people are like actively potentially looking for your service. And Meta is not really that, right? It's more like, people are just scrolling, and you're trying to create this like pattern interrupt that is hopefully relevant to them, which is done really effectively, but mostly not in legal marketing, to be frank, right? Mostly like direct to consumer products, things like that. Yeah, but we started doing it for class action lawsuits, and it resonated really well. Yeah, so that was something that was kind of a nice surprise.
Such a smart move. It makes a lot of sense because class action often people are not aware they could be part of it. So you can approach it from that brand. Well, more like you lead with the answer before they even have a question. And then they're like, wow, yes, I do fall in this category. I mean, same thing with class action being advertised on TV. Now it's going into OTT platforms with streaming and other things. which is super interesting. But I think to your point, you can do it on social with probably a lot better tracking and still exercising the same type of aspects of these campaigns.
You had a good point when you said they don't know they have this problem, right? So that's why, like, they're only going back to the search engine results page when they've heard about it through one of these other mediums, right? So maybe like the deeper research. Um, but the people that are just like seeing it and converting, it's kind of like one of those like, hey, did you know, right? And then they're not really doing a lot of research, right? They're just kind of submitting the form, and they're going to see what happens, right? They're going to have a conversation with an attorney or like a case manager, and see if they're eligible. I think mass tort probably falls in that category too, but we don't really do any mass tort marketing.
For the class action, were the budgets relatively reasonable, or there were high budgets?
No, they're relatively reasonable. It's not something where you need, 15, 20, 25, 30 grand or something like that. So yeah, you can kind of, limp in with, $5,000 ish or so, and test the market. The thing with class action is like, it's just really interesting. Like, I think it's a better suit for law firms that have like multiple suits going on, right? So it's like, okay, we have these kind of different avatars or personas, right, that we can like test them concurrently and see which one is taking off. And Facebook's pretty responsive. Like, right, if you're not getting the conversions, then your cost per conversion is already going to be above X, so you abandon, right, and you pivot. So yeah.
All right. So last two questions, and I ask all my guests this because it's kind of interesting little role play. So first one is, if you were to start a personal injury law firm, what would be the initial steps you would take to advertise it?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I actually get some of those phone calls. People, hey, I'm leaving this more. So here's what I would do. Let's just call a spade, right? It's brutally competitive, right? So it's unrealistic to like just start and be like, I'm going to go do all the platforms you and I just talked about, right? I'm going to do SEO, Google Ads, LSA, Facebook, right? Okay. So what I would do is I would just go so hard on the networking aspect, right? So I would meet every single attorney in my city that could potentially refer cases to me. And I think there's
non-personal injury. Okay.
And I'm glad you said that, because I even think that in some attorneys' heads is like this misconception, right? That they think a PI attorney won't refer a case, but they actually will, right? Because just like you and I have like our ideal clients, so do all these attorneys. So there might be a bigger law firm that's like, you know what, we're really good at litigating. We want to be in the courtroom. We want these big cases. Yeah, we get these like little car accident stops, and they're not that interesting to us. It's like, oh, what do you do with those, right? So there might be what appears to be your competitor, could be your best friend, and they refer you the smaller cases. And when you get that big, complicated case that you're not ready for, guess what? Reciprocity. You partner with them, they litigate, you co-counsel, get a revenue share, right? So that's what I would do. I would make sure that every single attorney knows me. I would network with them. And if you think about it, like, you can risk it on a credit card and spend, 10 grand a month to start off on Google Ads, or you can, host all these lunches and dinners, and, each one costs you a few $100. And the next thing I would do is just involve myself in the community, and whatever that means, right? Each community is unique in the events that are going on, but I would be there, and I would be there with branded shirts and a small investment in swag and handing it out, right? And yeah, and I think, when you start to get clients, you start to build a little community, and each one is a potential referral source, right? So then, do a great job for them, reach back out, see if they know anyone. And then these cases take a long time to settle. So it's very, I really look up to these these TI firms because it's not easy to start one, right? It's like you start a firm, all you do is spend money. Then 3 months later, you get your first case, and then that pays out in 15 months, right? It's then once the money starts rolling in, then you can think about, a smartly planned advertising budget and just keep scaling it up. That's what I would do.
I think your advice is great because you're basically saying, hey, maximize just the already available resources that don't maybe directly cost money, like ads or PPC, or SEO or website. I think you're going to need some of those fundamentals anyways. But then once you get yourself a little bit started, that's when you start incrementally expanding your investment. Oh, let's fix the website so I can get a backlink from the local sponsorships that I'm actively involved with. So I can upload the pictures of me being there. And, you continue that flywheel from there. All right, my final question, with AI, search generative experience, it's all coming down on us. And actually today was first time I randomly got an SGE result, like not being in the labs, none of that.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I got a result I was actually doing a little research on another vertical we're in, some plumbing, some HVAC service results. And after the regular result, I got like these odd mix. It was sort of like just a mix of different types of results. There was an article. There was like, oh, here's top 10 best ones. Just kind of suggestive information into other information that I might have find interesting, which was kind of clever because I finished the SERP and only then I got served that. Okay, that was a long intro to my question, but so my question is, where do you see search marketing going in next 2 years?
Well, it's a good question, and everybody's thinking about it. And what I think about is like, I think the changes, and this is just my predictions, will be more like consequential for like other verticals. You know what I mean? A lot of like even the examples from Google and some of the testing I'm seeing are like these really like kind of like long-winded questions and like these like comparisons and like, hey, create me like a diet and a workout plan, and I want it to be about Blue Zone, right? So it's got that like, it's underpinned by like that chat GPT feeling, right? It feels like you're there, but you're on the SERP. And then also like these different like content embeds, you know what I mean? So you have like the article or like the 0-click stuff where it's just like your answer's right here. You want to ask another question, right? And then it's populating. And then almost like this, I think like the embeds of like the YouTube shorts would be there, or like maybe from other platforms, right? So, and then when I think about it for lawyers, like one example I saw, and it was for a restaurant, but they had like the traditional map pack, but they kind of like put it in the upper right-hand corner. I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Yeah. And then they had like 4 or 5 different restaurants. So I started to think about and they looked like almost like knowledge panels, you know what I mean? So I was like, that's really interesting. Cause like, if you think about it, like what would happen, right, to clicks if we just added like the 4th listing to maps, right? So I think what would happen is like number 1, 2, and 3 would lose a little bit of their clicks, right? And then number 4 would get some, probably the minority, right? So it just depends on your perspective, right? If you're number 1, you don't like that. If you're number 4, even though you were number 4 before, you're pretty much dead, right? Like the second page of Google, you're starting to get a little bit of clicks. So long-winded answer. I think, the clicks might get like kind of polarized and kind of spread out. And then companies like you and me, like the analysis of what content is serving under what like kind of search intent scenarios is going to take place, right? So we can like kind of figure out like where are like the highest impact places to be and what do we need to do to get there. Now, with all that said, I also read this SEO pros like analysis, and he's been like, like analyzing like search labs like every day. And he says it's changing so much that if anything is true, none of us know, right? So, and I think we all know how Google and big tech roll out products. Like, yeah, it's in testing, but guess what? Like when it goes live, we are the test dummies, right? And they're going to get all this data, and they're always going to be making changes. So I even think when it goes live, you have to be a little careful about like having conviction around like really hard changes to optimize for it, because I think it's going to be like evolving until it kind of settles down. So
an interesting point guest brought up on this topic, Victor Perez, he said Google still doesn't want to admit that one of the biggest ranking factors is links. So with these new changes coming out, they're trying to diversify the algorithm. This way, the influencing factors are not just links, but there are other things that are influencing your ranking authority. You know, it comes back to what you're suggesting. YouTube videos might matter. Some other source of information you need to appear on. I mean, that sounds like a link, but just overall, your brand needs to be a lot more active. I mean, it's not conclusive yet, but the activity is going to be evaluated a lot more across every channel you exist, and it will be compared to what your competitors are doing. And you know, if competitors have billboards, you might need to get billboards too.
Right. To me, that makes sense. And, you know, Google has kind of been saying this for a decade or more, right? That links aren't going to be as valuable. Links aren't going to be as valuable. And from their perspective, you know, we all know why, because it can be manipulated, right? But it's also very practical to be like, you know, all these publishers are linking to this content, so it must be popular. They need a way to distinguish, right? Because there's billions of pieces of content. But what you're saying to me makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's like, let's just say it's TikTok, right? And it's like this TikTok video had 1 million views. That means something. So when this little video section on SGE, we're going to put that in here. Or, hey, Chris wrote this article and it's on Search Engine Journal. That must mean he's an authoritative figure. So when we put this little like snippet, right, it's going to be from there, right? So it's not really a link. It's just like, you know, it's pulling it in from there. So yeah, which is going to make it very interesting, right? Because it's maybe the people with like the commitment to the personal branding are going to really win, and everyone else is going to have to catch up. Maybe the people who were like more publisher like agnostic and were like creating content on all these different platforms, maybe that's going to pay off. We don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Wow. Well, that was a good little, what were we going to label that as, a brainstorm or speculation? I think speculation. That's exactly what it was.
And that's why I put my disclaimer in there, because it will be funny for us, you and I, to come back and watch this video in a year, and we'll see how right or wrong we were. You know,
I feel like links will still matter,
no matter what anyone else says, right? Yeah.
You're like, links, still got to build them.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, thank you so much. It was a very insightful and energizing and dynamic dialogue. I loved the conversation and the ideas you brought. I appreciate your participation. If our listeners want to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. And if anyone wants to go kind of check us out, see what we're up to, probably the best place is the website, which is rocketpilots.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brian. And I'm sure we'll catch up soon. All right. Take care.